Welcome everyone to another episode of Get Tech Smart. I am your host, Flo Nicholas, and as usual, we talk all things tech that are going on right here in New Hampshire. And I'm really excited for my guest today because she comes highly recommended. I've had several people say, you've got to have her on your show. And welcome today, Kendra Bostick. You're one of the founders of Kikori. Very unusual name, but we'll get into that. But first, we're going to kind of talk about your women in tech. And we're right here in New Hampshire, so you know I'm all about supporting women and girls in tech. So let's talk about your journey. Like, how did you transition into tech?
Yeah, we call it our entrepreventure.
Okay. I'm going to steal that. I like that.
Yeah, because it has been an incredible adventure, unexpected, to be completely honest, which I think adds to the wonders of, everything that has happened. Yeah. I have a background as a school social worker. So I worked in schools in Chicago and really fell in love with experiential education. Experiential education is a big umbrella. Underneath it is team building and challenge courses, and really just using activities that involve active play and intentional reflection in helping our students really grow and learn.
Right.
And so for me, I was trained in experiential education and really brought these activities to the schools that I worked in, to my students in particular. I saw them really thrive with these collaborative team building activities. And I wanted to become the best, experiential educator, the best facilitator that I could be. And at the end of one exceptional workshop by Lori Frank, who led professional development on how to use adventure to create caring communities in Madison for 30 years. At the end of that, it was, what do I need for my practice? And so when I thought about what I really needed in my school, I needed really easy access to these activities. So I needed a ring of icebreakers and a ring of problem-solving initiatives. And I think much like many people who fall into an idea, I was feeling lazy. And I was like, what a pain, like printing and laminating. It'd be so much easier if it was an app.
Right.
So it turns out it wasn't easier. 5 years later, it's been
a lot of work.
A lot more work, yeah, than spending a Saturday afternoon. But I think we are able to make a lot more impact with the platform that we've been developing since then.
Okay, so let's dive into Kikori and what it is. And for those of you who are listening and watching, you're probably like, I still don't know what Kikori is. Let's dive into that. First of all, let's start with the name.
Okay.
All right. First of all, before we even get into what it is, we're going to keep you guessing. How did you come up with the name Kikori?
Yeah, so the name was just one of our stops on our entrepreventure. Yeah. We had a different name that we had picked out, and our developer at the time didn't love the name, and so we actually spent a couple months thinking, like, what is this? What are we building? Is it a bag of tricks? That's what we call. That's what we call like the bag that we bring to team building sessions, or is it a toolbox? And I grew up on a river, and my partner, Bryn Lodig, she led kayaking expeditions for 15 years, and so we're both really connected to the river. One of her favorite quotes is that no man, no person steps in the same river because the river is always changing, and so is the person. And that's also a big part of experiential education in these activities is whenever you play them, they're always different because the students are always different, the leader is different. And so she was looking up the longest rivers in the country. Unfortunately, the Amazon was already taken.
Right, yeah, I think they would come after you if you tried that one.
Yeah, so she kept looking, and what she found is that the longest undammed river in Papua New Guinea is called Kikori. Papua New Guinea is the most linguistically diverse country, and so the same way that a life force connects people who speak different languages and come from different backgrounds, so does experiential social emotional learning connect people who come from different backgrounds, speak different languages through joy and play and laughter.
Yeah. So who is Kikori built for?
Yeah, so Kikori is built for teachers, K-12 teachers. It really can be used by anyone who is interested in leading team building activities, so facilitators, counselors, but our key focus in the area where we see the most need right now in the country is in schools.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because when we go to the website and I'm searching, I'm seeing words like engaged activity and emotional learning. What do you think is missing presently in our school systems today that kind of was the catalyst to building this platform?
Yeah, so in the early 2000s, schools made a move towards more standardized testing and removed a lot of play from our classrooms. The focus began, like, how can we work as much as possible? It's really interesting if you talk with teachers who went through this time period and how they just had to focus on teaching to the test. And so that, along with the social pressures, the screen time that is affecting all of our students, and COVID, our students and teachers are experiencing really a mental health crisis that's never been seen before, along with the learning loss. So there have been reports that came out over the past year about 2 years of learning loss, which hasn't been seen. I mean, in the past, it's almost like 2 decades of growth what has been wiped out, especially for our students who are historically marginalized, that scores are back to where they were, like math scores in the 70s, as well as, I mean, our teenage girls, again, reports are coming out about their mental health needs. And so when we talk with any principals kind of around the country, there are just behavioral, social, emotional needs that haven't been seen before. So they were already increasing prior to COVID, but there's from kindergarten through 12th grade, extreme needs.
I can attest to that as a parent and also someone who kind of takes a look at what's going on around the world, because, you know, I'm an advocate for STEM, and our numbers have decreased. Our numbers in you know, what kids are learning, like especially math and science, those numbers are going in the wrong direction. So let's talk about the emotional and engaging activities. What are some of the examples of, you know, the activities and resources that are offered through the platform?
Yeah, so we have currently over 1,000 experiential social emotional learning activities. It is a community-driven platform, which is another piece I think is really special. So the activities have been gifted to us from leading like experiential leaders. We've got amazing like books of curriculum that are of activities that are a part of the platform. And it's also actually available to any educator throughout the country. We believe that our educators are creative and innovative, and so we welcome them to add activities and be part of this process with us. Instead of creating the silos, how can we all work together? And so the activities themselves follow Kolb's experiential learning cycle. So that learning cycle starts with a play, a direct experience, and then an intentional reflection. And then after that reflection on what happened in that activity, how does that connect with your life? Right. And then what can we learn from this activity going forward? And so I'd be happy to give you kind of an example.
Yeah, let's dig in. Yeah, let's break it down so that, you know, parents and teachers who are watching, because I almost feel like this is something as a parent, if, you know, sometimes when you have those remote learning days, I feel like my kids get distracted sometimes. So it's like if I can incorporate something to wake them up, that would be great.
Yeah, well, and that's really the joy of these activities. And we have heard from lots of parents as well, like throughout COVID, who are using the platform to try to bring it into their homes. But yeah, so each activity, the other difference is there is, you know, a difference between, you know, telling a kid, like, this is what you need to do, you know, here's a video, watch, versus facilitating an experience or a game where they get to play themselves and they're intrinsically motivated and they're having fun and they're learning from what happened in that activity. So I think a great example is we all remember learning multiples, maybe sitting at our desks and repeating like 7,
Right.
14,
Yeah.
21, we're like, okay,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
like, trying to memorize and trying to do this, and like our eyes are,
Right.
that's okay. Sometimes we have to memorize things.
Right. 1 times 1 is 1. Yeah.
Yes. So a great example is an activity called Clap Happy. And so you basically, kids are sitting, so instead of sitting in their desk, they're sitting in a circle and they're playing a game. And with the game, they clap. So they say 1, 2, 3, and on 7, the student that has 7 does not clap. And then, so students are engaged, they're playing,
Right.
so 8, 9, 10, and then on 14, Susie says 14.
Yeah.
And of course, she wasn't supposed to clap, and maybe the students say, oh, Susie, like, why did you mess it
Right.
up, right? And so now the students are playing a game, they're engaged, and now there's an opportunity where Susie might shut down, students might say something mean, where the teacher can bring in these social emotional elements, and she
Right.
can say, what just happened? At this point, students can say, like, I was frustrated, I wanted us to win. I reacted, I said something that wasn't so kind. What happened with Susie? I didn't want to play anymore when students were mean to me.
Right.
And now you move, so that's the reflect, and now you move to the connect. Has this happened for anyone else? Where a student might say, I was playing soccer the other day and I kicked it the wrong way, everyone was mean, I didn't want to play anymore. Okay, and now we go to grow. Is this what we want?
Right.
What do we want in our classroom? Do we want to be able to take risks? Do we want to feel safe, trying new things? Absolutely. What can we do next time? We can give each other high fives. We can say, it's okay, no problem, we'll
Right.
get it. And so then the next day, when they're playing a game or doing an activity and someone makes a mistake, then students are giving each other high five. They are saying, no big deal, we got this, we're in this together.
Yeah.
And so that's the magic of these experiential social emotional learning activities, where students are really getting to practice and live the skills instead of being told what they should be doing.
I almost feel like this can be taught in a corporate setting, like
Oh.
with adults, because the skills that you're talking about, I'm thinking about, the times where maybe as a team in a corporate setting, you miss a goal. And, everybody's like, oh, you know what, it's that Tom. If that Tom had just gotten 1 extra cell, our team could have won and met our milestones. But I feel like this is also for the corporate team building activities.
Oh, 100%. So with our team and our bandwidth, we are focused on schools right now, but there is incredible need. And anyone that I talk to in business are
Right.
like, oh my goodness, we're focused, like our HR would love this. And these activities are classic team building activities that are often brought into corporate settings. And can be really powerful. There's, I'm getting a doctorate right now and learning about some of the, kind of the black box to why these work. And when you enter into a game or activity, you let go of a lot of your walls and your defense mechanisms, and you play, and your real natural behavior comes out.
Yeah.
And so that's where you might get upset, you might get frustrated,
The competitiveness
exactly.
comes out. Yeah.
And you can really, look at what happened in this container. And then see, how does that happen in our real lives? How does that happen? Do we feel safe to make mistakes in our work?
Yeah, you bring up so much great points, because I almost feel like is the psychological behavior that a teacher can use to really assess the needs of their students, right? If you have someone who's very competitive and struggles to collaborate, because the game you talked about requires not only like listening and communicating, because you got to listen to the cues. Because if I'm number 7 and I shouldn't clap, I need to be listening to see, all right, it's my turn. Oh, this is number 7. And Susie, maybe she wasn't listening, she clapped and hit 14 when she wasn't supposed to. So do you feel like these type of engaged activities can help teachers really assess the needs of their students?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, so when you're starting off the school year, that's one of the things we recommend. Like, play a game. Play a lineup game, and you can watch and you can see immediately who are the students who have difficulty with self-regulation, who are the students who have difficulty with executive functioning, who are the students who have difficulty working together. They are amazing assessment tools, and the really cool thing is that kids are involved.
Yeah.
And they'll talk with each other. And they won't be able to accomplish because of some of those things. And so they will actually be able to learn, okay, wait, I do have to wait my turn,
right.
or I do have to focus, or I do have to do these things. But again, they're intrinsically motivated because they want to win with their class. Or they want to achieve together, instead of being told there's something wrong with you and you have to learn this skill. It's a different way of going about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's the feedback you're getting from teachers that are implementing these activities? Because, I mean, like you said, I feel like these days there's this really kind of like big push to get away from the, traditional just sit in all day. What is some of the feedback?
Yeah. So we are now in 28 schools and organizations around the country, and we're hearing from teachers, honestly, that they feel like superheroes.
Well, because they get to play games. Like, who doesn't want to go to school and play games? But educational games.
Educational games.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like the difference between a game and the experiential social emotional learning activities is this intentional reflection.
Right.
So there are lots of wonderful games which have their own value. It's important to have fun for the sake of having fun. And when you can add in this reflection and have kids really think about what happened,
right,
and learn and change how they are for the better of the whole class, that's where it becomes really educational. But yeah, no, we hear that they feel like superheroes, that they are able to, like, and the students are like, you knew what you were doing.
Right, right. You're sneaking in this game where I'm learning how to be a more compassionate human being, or because those are but I mean, let's be honest, those are skills that they're gaining that are needed in the real world, right? Because in the real world, you can't, just go around, and at work, just stomping around and trying to be, well, I'm the leader, I'm the boss, and just everybody else is going to lose. You got to learn how to work, because what I always say, teamwork makes the dream work. But in order for you to have teamwork, you got to know what that means, right? And you got to have exposure to it early.
100%, yeah. So when people ask who these activities are for, we say ages K to 99.
Yeah. I told you in the corporate setting, there's a lot of people who need this.
Yeah. But yeah, so these activities, I think, are really, really important for gaining those skills. There's also, speaking of reports, lots of reports out that companies right now are having a really hard time hiring and finding people that have those social emotional skills.
Right.
So the 4 critical, it's like communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity is something that's, necessary for a workplace. And students aren't able to get that by studying for a test, whereas they are when they are, actively engaged in.
Right. I think because also too, like when we think education, we're just so stuck in, well, the math skills, the social studies skills, but if you think about it, that game that you just said where they're clapping, well, they're going to need to know their math, right? Because you got to know what 7 is and be on the lookout for, yes, 6 comes after 7. So there's that educational aspect to it where you're learning your numbers, but then there's also that other, real world skills. And I would add kindness and respect to that list because, sometimes you do see that where we're just not very nice and respectful to each other. So having students learn that early is really critical. It's funny, like when we always go out to eat, my kids are always like, please, thank you, all this stuff. And people are always commenting like, oh my God, your kids are so respectful. And I'm like, that should be the norm. It shouldn't be strange to hear, the kids be respectful. Yeah. And I think these activities, the emotional learning, I feel like they incorporate that.
Yeah, well, and there's one more like kind of unique practice that you can do with the activities. Where instead of so you can build in competition is a part of our lives as well.
Of course.
but there's also a way that you can make the activities competitive but collaborative or cooperative. And so by just changing the goal, instead of one group against another group, you can have all of the students working together to beat their time, for example, or see how many answers they can get right in a certain amount of time, etc.
Right.
And so there are ways that are really wonderful where you can help teach your students that they will do better, further, faster if they work together, which I think is also missing in some ways. And this country is really focused on achievement and efficiency and productivity, and I think that we have lost a lot of just caring about each other and being kind and empathy. I mean, that's, I think, one of the biggest things that we hear from teachers is the kids don't have that empathy.
Right.
And there's a real opportunity within these activities to learn that.
Yeah. And so right now, like, I'll give you an example, like for my 10-year-old, like, I feel like she's in school from like 8:30 to about like 3:05. Like, how often should the teacher implement, like, and that type of school calendar day, how often should they implement one of those activities?
Yeah, so one of the beautiful things with these activities as well is that they can be led throughout the school day.
Okay.
And so one of the issues that's come up is that there's a social emotional learning block, which is wonderful and amazing that schools are building this in. But the question is, how can you really weave this throughout the school day and have it be a part of everything that you do?
Right.
And so with our activities, they are possible to be built into, so morning meeting and advisory is one other time of the day that schools across the country are building in, which I think is amazing to start your day with social emotional learning, and then circle time at the end of the day. So it's almost like bookmarking, beginning, like, how are we going to start this day? Wherever we've come from, whatever's happened, we're here together. What's our focus? How do we want to, have this day go? What are our goals? And at the end of the day, be able to reflect and say, how did we do? What happened? And really have those pieces. But throughout the day, the activities can be built into academics, brain breaks. So we can have, energizing brain breaks, calming brain breaks, mindfulness activities after coming back from recess are really popular. These activities can be built into the cafeteria. They're really fun, like mix it up days that you can do where students are engaging with each other, meeting with new kids, using conversation starters, recess. They're great outdoor activities to bring kids outside. Trying to think after school activities, and so they can really be built in throughout the school day, and we kind of outline that with Kikori.
Yeah, and I like that. I'm starting to also see, because now we're in the world of social media and TikTok, and now you're starting to see teachers kind of having these activities. Like, I think I've seen one where a teacher has a handshake for each student.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, kudos to you, because I can barely remember my kids' names. And this teacher has like 20 kids and has a handshake for each of them. And I think the other one I saw, a teacher will, I think it's like grab a mirror and the students have to say something wonderful about themselves. And this is all like at the start of the day, like, I am beautiful, and, whatever extra special words they say about themselves. So do you feel like this is all kind of falls into this engaged activity?
Yes, 100%, and we welcome anyone who has these types of activities. We welcome you to take part and join the platform and bring the activities. We're happy to share them out with teachers around the country, around the world, actually. But absolutely, that's the idea. And again, there's that active play piece, and then how does doing this, if we're able to kind of get meta with students, how does doing this help us? Are there other times when you could hold up a mirror, when it'd be helpful to hold up a mirror? Do you know anyone else who could use a mirror? How could you bring this mirror to them and show them how they feel? So there's some extra power in that reflection afterwards as well.
Yeah. So what's your vision? Where are you now with Kikori as of today, and where do you want it by the end of the year?
By the end of the year.
What's your wish list?
Yeah, so we have a team of 6 hardworking women who are part of our team. And as I mentioned, we've been brought into around 28 schools and organizations across the country. And our goal is we have put together a Summer Spark summer program that's perfect for summer learning, summer enrichment, extended school year programs throughout the summer, as well as some really exciting like comprehensive curriculum and training that's available for the fall. And our goal is for teachers, for parents to check it out, check out what we're doing. We're really excited about like feedback, and since we're a small team, we're nimble, we're actually able to take into consideration and update the platform based on what our users are looking for. But yeah, our dream right now, we have I think 3 or more users in 94 countries around the world as well.
So you're international.
So we're international, and the really cool thing about that is we actually have one of our partners is Play for Peace. Mm-hmm. So they have facilitators in communities in conflict in 20 countries around the world. Right. And they're also able to send in activities so we just had a facilitator in Afghanistan, add 5 activities from Afghanistan. Oh, wow. Yeah, so how cool is it that we can share activities that come from Costa Rica and Mexico and Afghanistan, and really, I think, provide activities that come from different places around the world, because our country, we are all made up of people from all around the world. And so I think just getting more kids playing, inviting teachers. So with our teacher training, we actually facilitate teachers to experience these activities themselves. We call it a parallel process, where they play just like you were talking about with corporate. They get to play the activities, kind of connect with each other, build a sense of community amongst the staff. And then there's this platform of activities where they can find anything they need for their grade level variations based on what they're looking for, the skills that they're working on in their classroom.
Yeah, no, that's great, because it also gives them exposure to other kind of engaged activities that other kids around the world are doing.
Yes.
So, like you said, someone in Afghanistan, and maybe you might get a student who's in Africa, for example, and maybe, there are certain schools where they don't have a lot of resources. So they create unique games using simple materials like sticks and rocks. And, our kids can be able to be a part of a game and engage activity that's being played in Africa, and they can play it like right here in their classroom.
Yeah, so that's part of kind of the grand vision, is like dreaming of, sister schools and having students be able to play games with each other once a month.
Oh, so are you actually thinking about where you can set up where maybe they can play a game, but they're like watching on the monitor or someone and playing a game with students in other schools?
Yeah, so there is an amazing gentleman, Daniel Lubetsky, who's the founder of the Kind Foundation, and he built a platform called Empático. Empático means empathy in Spanish. And so with that platform, schools are able to connect around the world.
Oh, nice.
So if anyone knows Daniel Lubetsky, let him know that I said hi.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But
wow.
that's part of the dream would be for schools to be able to have sister schools, and for students to really be able to play with each other and build a sense of empathy and learn about each other and learn games from. And of course, then you can add on, pen pals or recipes, or there's so many different fun things that you can do.
I see that. Yeah, I am here for that. I think that is fantastic. As somebody who, grew up in Africa for 7 years, although I vaguely remember, again, I can barely remember what I did an hour ago. So going back when I was, from, 1 to 7, but I remember having these fun activities, kind of like running outside, and that was always like my favorite part, is like the relay races. Like I had to like pick up an egg and do something silly and run. And I lost one day because I saw my daddy in the audience, and I started focusing on my dad versus doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
But it's like you said, it's okay. It's okay. But is it really okay? Because I still have that memory.
I think that your dad probably felt really special.
Yeah, that
and
is
so
true. That is true. You made me lose, Dad. No, I mean, this is great. I love the fact that, you say you're small and you're nimble and you're open to suggestions. There are probably educators out there that might want a little more information so they can contribute some of the activities that they see that are successful in their classroom. So how are you vetting these activities before they get incorporated?
Yeah, so there is a quality approval process. So no one needs to worry if they submit an activity. It will come to our team, and we've got, oh gosh, I don't know, 50 years of experience in leading these activities. So we make sure that the activity, all the steps, everything makes sense, that it aligns with the standards. So we do align with CASA social emotional learning standards, as well as 21st century skills and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh, nice.
Yes, so we're working on building out like sustainable activities that align with those as well. And so we go through the entire activity. We'll connect with the educator.
That's good.
Yeah, to make sure that it meets all the standards.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, we are in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of technology that's booming here. And one of the reasons I created the show is I just don't feel there's a lot of attention and spotlight on there. What do you see is the future of technology in our state?
The future of technology. Yeah, and I'd also love to give like a little shout out to
Sure.
So it's just some of I arrived here 3 years ago to get my doctorate at the University of New Hampshire.
UNH, I have a special bond with UNH, so yes, we can do a shout out.
Awesome. Yeah, I was introduced in week 1 to Ian Grant at the Entrepreneurship Center, and through that have just been afforded amazing opportunities. We were able to win the Social Venture Innovation Challenge, the Holloway Competition, participate in National Science Foundation I-Corps program, and have been introduced to amazing, advisors and leaders. The university, as well as New Hampshire Tech Alliance, has just been an incredible advocate. We were able to be part of their New Hampshire Tech Showcase and win the Millworks Fund as well as actually I was able to lead a workshop for women in tech, where we played games, and it was just so much fun.
Of course, there's got to be game playing. I want to go to the workshops you do because I know I'll be guaranteed a game.
Yes, yeah, no, it was really, really fun. So shout out to all the different people who are working in technology in New Hampshire, and the future of tech. I mean, AI is everywhere.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so AI, like how can we use AI in a positive way, machine learning, like data science. I feel like those are the different pieces that are being integrated. I was at the Boston EdTech Summit, and they mentioned that AI is a tool for us, a tool for humans, that without humans being a part and playing a part, that it's not really healthy or useful. So I appreciate that perspective. Within EdTech in particular, I think that the goal is how can we really bring these, social emotional learning in particular in EdTech into academics. How can we align it with assessment? And
EdTech is booming, right? We're seeing a lot more apps, platforms that are coming out that are geared towards the education world, and also too when you leverage technology, especially for kids with disabilities, they can do a lot more. I heard about someone is supposed to connect me to someone who's working with virtual reality and helping disabled students. So I think we're gonna see a lot more wonderful platforms coming out, just like Kikori, that are helping kids through technology.
Absolutely. Well, and I know, so Universal Design for Learning, UDL, they have a CAST program. I know they just built, so their principles are how can you make sure that what you're doing is really meeting the needs of all of your students. So I know that they just work together with a program, Choose Love Now, to bring it into New Hampshire prisons. And I feel like there's a lot of personalized learning is another thing that's really important right now in technology. How can we make sure that what we're doing is is like learning from our students, meeting the needs, meeting them where they're at, being able to save teachers time.
Yeah.
We just can't ever forget that teachers know their students best.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, they will tell you, yeah, no, little Johnny is not as great as you think he is. But of course, they can't say that. They can't say that. They're like, hey, little Johnny needs help with A, B, C, D. But no, I have a lot of respect for teachers. Every time I have a parent-teacher conference, one of the things I always take the time to do is say thank you. Because I know it's a challenge, and they're dealing with kids with different personalities, different learning challenges and abilities. And having 3 kids, I know about living in a house with people with different personalities. So it is a challenge.
That is true.
So as we wrap up, what is your final shout out for Kikori and your team? What do you want the people in New Hampshire to know about?
I think that, that, we're really focused, as I mentioned, on like achievement and efficiency and productivity, and everyone I talk to, we're really tired and and overworked, and 50% of the equation should be play and joy and fun and rest and reflection. And so just how can we remember that and be okay with bringing that into our lives? And I think if you do, watch how it really helps you and your family.
Yeah, and I can see this with a lot of companies that are now going hybrid and fully remote. They can incorporate some of these activities into team huddle calls, just to kind of get everybody still happy and engaged and connected, right? Because I think that's one of the things we hear a lot with remote work. Like, well, people are not really connected to their employees. Everybody's in their own home offices. But I think these games can make a difference. So think about that. Remote learning activities, corporate training. So thank you so much for being here, Kendra. I really appreciate it and taking the time to tell us more about the Kikori platform. And thank you for all you're doing to help our kids be more engaged and learn about emotional learning, because it's really, really important. So thanks again. And for everybody who's watching, thank you so much for watching another episode of Get Tech Smart. And stay tuned for more.